Our first speaker after the break is going to be Dr. Benjamin Franklin Chavez Jr. He is a civil rights leader. Dr. Chavez was an assistant to Martin Luther King Jr., who inspired him to work in the civil rights movement. Dr. Chavez, it's our honor to have you today. It's a big honor and inspiration to the people of South Sudan to have you actually be in the room with us today to inspire us so we can follow in your footsteps. You are welcome.
Thank you very much. Observing all protocol, to all the ambassadors, to all the dignitaries, elected officials, brothers and sisters. I bring you greetings from the National Newspaper Publishers Association, which represents 230 African-American owned newspapers across the United States. We reach about 30 million people a week in print. We have two papers here in Minneapolis, the Minnesota Spokesman and the Insight News. I want to thank the planners of the conference for inviting me to participate in what I think is a very, very important conference. My background is that I'm born in North Carolina in 1948. I was sort of brought up in the civil rights movement. And my sister, who's 14 years older than me, she was a college professor. She married a brother from Juba. In fact, the wedding was in Juba, Paul Anadi Arthur. So I come, and they have a beautiful daughter named Ajula, who is a lawyer now in North Carolina. So I stand before you not just as a distant advocate of the South Sudan, but we're family. Family. I also just want to echo something that the Prime Minister said earlier about the struggle in Sri Lanka. The truth of the matter is, all liberation movements, all struggles for self-determination, all struggles for human rights are interconnected, are related. Dr. King, when I started working with Dr. King, I was 14 years old. And thank God that my parents allowed me to work for Martin Luther King Jr. at such an early age. I put my age up. I was driving when I was 14, needed mobility. And I learned a lot. And of course, when my sister married a brother from Juba, I tried to learn much more about what was going on in the Sudan. I was very much involved in the 1960s and the 1970s with the liberation movement in Africa. Actually, for a short period of time, I moved to Angola. I was working with the MLPLA, the ANC. I was working with SWAPO in Namibia and a lot of the liberation movements. So, over my career, I had a chance to meet in person and have dialogue with John Garang on several occasions. In fact, I took an honor to meet with him once in Washington, D.C. And so I come to this conference, which is my understanding, the title is Getting a Pathway, a Roadmap for Sustainable Peace in the South Sudan. Sustainable peace. I believe that our brothers and sisters in the South Sudan, I think you're a blessed people. You're not a cursed people. You're a blessed people. And everybody, outside of the Sudan, outside of South Sudan, they focus on your natural resources, on the oil and other things. But to me, the most important resource that the South Sudan has is the people. people, men, women, and children. And I think that I'm glad I got here a little early to hear some of the other presentations. I think that this is a discussion that needs to continue. And one of the things I want to work on is to make sure that the outcomes of this conference, that we kind of raise the public awareness in America about the South Sudan. Because I'm in the media business, I follow trends and not just the headlines, but what happens in the depths of the stories about Africa. And in general, most of the stories about Africa in the American press are not, they're negative by and large. Very once in a while, there's a positive story, but most are negative. And I think that we need to take charge. So part of the role of having sustainable peace in the Sudan, in the South Sudan, make sure that the South Sudan, that you control your own messaging, that you control your own press, that you control your own distribution of the truth. And so I've come today to announce that I've already met with my board, the National Newspaper Publishers Association. From this day forward, we're going to start covering what you say about the South Sudan and not what AP or UPI or somebody else. It's very, very important. We live in a digital age. Everybody has their device. But unfortunately, a lot of information on these devices is not accurate. So you got to have a trusted source where people can go find out the truth of what is going on in the South Sudan, where people can be in solidarity, but be in solidarity in a way that improves the quality of life of the brothers and sisters who are in the South Sudan. And I've given this a lot of thought. And some of you know that when my brother-in-law went back, when Paul and I went back to the Sudan, he was killed, in Juba. And we pledged, my sister, who was his wife for 30 years, passed away earlier this year. And at her funeral, I said, and I'm going to repeat here today, that we're going to keep the spirit of Paul and I, the author, alive in everything that we do, and the people of the South Sudan in everything that we do. I believe that the self-determination of the people of South Sudan is not only worthy of our support, it is critical that we show our support, and not just for one instance, but ongoingly. So I'm going to be looking forward to meeting more of you closely, exchange contacts. I think the message, even from this conference, is so important. Sometimes we speak to ourselves, which is okay, but you need to speak to the world. The world needs to hear about the South Sudan. Now, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but most African nations, including probably the South Sudan, they hire these high-powered PR firms in Washington, D.C. to represent your interests. They take your money, and then they do not represent your interests. I just want to, and I'm not asking for a job. I'm saying we're going to do this because I'm in solidarity with you. I think it's very important that we get this word out, and some of the positive stories. I think we have to be careful. We should always be balanced. We should not just focus on the contradictions, the suffering, but should also focus on how we're overcoming those contradictions, how we're overcoming those sufferings, and so that we can make a better day for another generation to come. Just a little story from the Civil Rights Movement. When we were down in Alabama and Mississippi and Georgia, and even my home state, North Carolina, our theme song was "We Shall Overcome." We were not overcoming, but we sang the song anyway, because we had faith that we will need to persevere, that we're not going to allow the forces of oppression to determine our destiny. And I must thank God when the Sudanese finally, the Southern Sudanese, finally came together. But as you know, even after you declare independence, there's still problems. There's still internal things. And a lot of times, a lot of the tribal difficulties are imposed from outside forces, pitting one group against another group. And I think that if all of the tribes in the South Sudan would find ways how to work together, how to unite, how to protect one another, how to lift up each other, I think the South Sudan has a very positive future, but it's going to take a lot of work. And at the end of the day, to make sure that the policies, that the programs, that the projects serve the needs of the people on the ground. And I think that that is happening. I mentioned to you that I worked in Angola. I was so involved with the liberation movement in Angola. I was in Angola when the Cuban troops were there. I'm also a minister. So I was serving communion to Cuban troops in the foxholes as they were fighting the apartheid regime, South African forces. But one of the things the Angolans told me, said, Reverend Chavez, if you really want to help Africa, you got to go back and change the United States, because a lot of the policies out of the United States affect the quality of life of Africa. I'm glad you had the ambassador on earlier. I think we not only need engagement, I think the Biden-Harris administration is open, but they also need to make sure they get the right information, the right time. They have to keep pushing. Don't stop pushing. Always keep pushing. And even when you win a victory, keep pushing. Because the victory you win today, if you don't protect it, it'll become the failure for tomorrow. And I'm not lecturing to you. I'm speaking to you as a comrade in struggle. I'm speaking to you as a brother. I'm speaking to you as one who believes in the future of Africa, who believes in the horizon when all of Africa will rise to its chosen God-given destiny. And I think the Sudan, particularly the South Sudan, is a place that has been long overlooked by the rest of the world. And I think South Sudan's time is now. South Sudan's time is now. So in my short time, I just want to say three things. Number one, I mentioned the importance of working on the media. I think that there needs to be an overarching, the New Dawn Foundation, I think you need an overarching portal where people can go and find the accurate information. Also, with the embassy of the South Sudan to the United States, I think the embassy's website also has to have a section about current news coming directly from the South Sudan. Those of us who live in the United States, we have political science classes. They tell all of us in college, if you want to find out anything about the Africa, you go to the CIA World Book. The CIA maintains a book on every nation, not just every African nation, on every nation. And if you, this morning, so I got up and I said, let me see what the CIA is saying about the South Sudan. And it's interesting, it said that it was a new nation, the youngest nation, of great promise. But it also said that internal contradictions were preventing the fulfillment of the promise. And of course, when I read that, and I'm gonna say, well, I hope the CIA is not feeding those internal contradictions. Because the truth of the matter is, if you look at the history of colonization, decolonization of Africa, the way Africa was carved up, not by Africans. It served the interests of the former colonial powers. It served the interests of the former neo-colonial powers. And even today, where Africa has the greatest natural resources of any continent in the world, and yet Africa today has also some of the greatest poverty, some of the greatest homelessness, some of the greatest hunger, some of the greatest absence of fresh water. So, and these are problems that we should not just expect the former colonial powers to resolve. These are problems that we can resolve among ourselves, but it's going to take unity. And so I've come today, number one, to say we're going to help you, at least the Black press in America, we're going to help you with the press, getting that positive word out. Number two, there are 54 55 members of Congress of the Congressional Black Caucus. I'm going to ask the head of the Congressional Black Caucus, her name is Joyce Beatty. She's from Ohio. I think the Congressional Black Caucus ambassador needs to have a session about the South Sudan. Because if you poll most of the 55 members of Congress about the South Sudan, they say, oh yeah, I heard about it, but I really don't know that much. You know, and I think there's more than enough room, but responsibility. I remember when Donald Payne was chair of the Africa Committee, he's passed away. He was a congressman from New Jersey. His focus was on Africa and did a lot of work. But over the years, I've seen sort of, not a lack of focus, but so much is going on in the world. The world's attention right now is on Ukraine, and that's good. I think the world should pay attention to what's going on in Ukraine. But what was going on in Africa predates what's going on in Ukraine. And it's interesting to me what becomes of a national priority, what becomes of a national issue. And I believe working with members of the Congressional Black Caucus, we can make sustainable peace in South Sudan a national priority of the United States. That's what I want to see happen. And then thirdly, it's much more on how we relate to one another. I was so proud of my sister Helen and Paul and Nadi Arthur, because when Nadi came here and got his degree from the University of Wisconsin and then did work in North Carolina and worked some together in Washington, D.C. I was a former head of the NAACP at the time. And the thing that I loved about Anada and Helen, they wanted to make sure that they help other Sudanese. So from the early 1990s, actually late 1980s, early 1990s, they helped over 100 students from South Sudan come to the United States to get relocated, get an education. And we need to continue that. I hope that there's ways and means how we can make sure that we work on making sure that there are kind of exchange programs. And I know if the State Department, you know, how they viewed the Sudan and how they viewed the South Sudan was different. But I'm talking about now scholarships, access to visas, access to travel visas, access to student visas. I think that's something we need to pay attention to. I want to make sure that the South Sudanese do not get triaged in the process of immigration. I think the doors need to be wide open. It's interesting because of the Ukrainian conflict, people can arrive from Ukraine and get a visa, a passport, temporary documents in hours. But yet from Africa, sometimes it takes years. We're gonna stop that. I wanna see access. All countries ought to be treated fairly. All countries ought to be treated equally. And I think that if we don't raise our voices about it, it will continue to be the way it is. The reason why I've been involved in the civil rights movement all my life, I'm 74 years old. I got involved when I was 12. So that means I've been involved about 60 years. And one of the things I've learned is that freedom, and Frederick Douglass said it right, freedom is a constant struggle. It is a constant struggle, you know, and if you let down your guard, people will try to take advantage of you. And so I'm here to encourage you. I know you come from different parts of the United States to this conference. I'm glad you had my man Keith Ellison, Brain Green. He's a good attorney general. Let's give Keith Ellison another hand. He's a good attorney general. And I know that I'm in Minneapolis and I came here during the George Floyd thing. But, you know, the conditions that Black Americans face in America are still all kind of tenuous. While the Biden-Harris administration is trying to go in a positive direction, there's a force, you know, trying to take the United States back in a backwards direction. The recent Supreme Court decision is an indication that they're going to start passing laws to dismantle some of the things that we fought for, like voting rights, you know, like human rights. But we're not going to give up. In 2020, there was a record Black voter turnout. In 2024, we're working to make sure there's a record Black voter turnout. Despite what the media says is that the Republicans are going to take over everything. Sometimes putting out those messages makes people feel like their efforts are in vain. And that's why I always tell all of my editors of my Black newspapers across the country, it's just not the headline, but it's what you say. Make sure that at the end of the day that you encourage people. Tell them the truth, absolutely. Speak truth to power, but speak truth to power in a way that lifts people's spirits up rather than try to make people feel depressed or like they're hopeless. You know, I believe that the world, the pendulum toward justice is definitely going in the right direction, but it requires much more organization. I really like the spirit again from you, Prime Minister. You really represent your people adequately with that spirit. Continue, and we pray for you, and we are also in solidarity with your people. Thank you. The last thing I want to say, I want to stay within my time limit. The last thing I want to say is simply this. As I look out at each of you today, I see the past, but I also see the future. And the future that I see is that a day will come where your children and grandchildren will lift their heads up high because of the progress of the South Sudan, because of the progress toward having a sustainable peace. We have to teach our children to be freedom fighters in all walks of life and never to forget the past. We should learn from the past, not repeat the past, learn from it. And what can we learn from the Sudan? What can we learn from the South Sudan? What can we learn from even what is going on today? Take that learning and come up with programs to make sure that we push forward. I think our young people today in the South Sudan, our young people in America, our young people all over the world, it's the best generation of youth we've ever been blessed to witness. They're intelligent, they're gifted, they're talented. Only thing they need is encouragement, and that's our job. That's our job. Long live the spirit of South Sudan. Long live the spirit of South Sudan. We're giving the mic so people can hear you.
So I want you to know that I want to confirm what you just said about Paul and Helen bringing many of our people here.
Yes.
And I'm an example. I'm one of them. My name is Utem. You remember me?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
You look a little older, but I know.
Yes. Yes. So I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure that my brothers and sisters know what you were saying is the truth.
Yes.
We can say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Will there be questions, answers?
No, we're not going to do
Okay,
any
good.
questions.
Thank you.
Let's give him another pause. Thank you again, Dr. Chavez. And we're going to move forward with our program. But before we do that, I'm going to give myself this opportunity to say a word or two. What I want to say is, we actually missed out on a very important question earlier in the last panel. Um, Yesterday, if anybody that wasn't here yesterday, I think I hosted the second half of the conference, and we made a clear statement that the moderators are not regulated by taking the task to moderate our panels, and they are allowed to moderate it any way they see fit for the conference. And they were given notice ahead of time to come up with questions that fits into the theme of the conference, which is building sustainable, a roadmap to build sustainable peace to South Sudan. So what I want to point out is we've been here since yesterday. We're going to be here until 6 in the evening today. If we're not using our time wisely, we're not going to come out with a great outcome, which is the whole point of hosting this conference. So what I would like to say is, can we please not disrupt the moderators and the panels? And if we can stick to the point that is being that's been discussed, that would give us a great outcome, because after the conference, we need to write a report. So we're all certified that we spend these 2 days on topics that wanted to address what we wanted to do initially. The two things I wanted to mention was with the moderators, and then making things clear that this conference is not a political conference, even though we have invited our scholars and political parties to come in so we can observe what they are doing. We even invite the government. So to be very, very clear, the conference is put together by a group of concerned citizens. And we, the concerned citizens, want to come up with an outcome to fulfill what we start out to do. So I don't think it's right for us to destruct what the path is, so we can have an outcome. We need to work together, but we do not want our program to be hijacked. So meaning, if you have a different agenda coming here, I think when we extended the invitation, we were clear that we are coming together to put a roadmap for sustainable peace in South Sudan. Being a woman and a mother, I am sick and tired of what is going on back home. That is why I obligated myself to be here to attend this conference so I can be part of what I need to see of my government. I do not appreciate the government telling me what to do. I would appreciate the government to hear me and then help me out and try to help me build peace in my country. What we have lost sight of is service to the country. As experience with South Sudan is, when you are in service, you want to order people around. That is not what service is. The meaning of service is the action of helping or doing work to somebody. So if you want to be my government, hear me out and help me bring peace to the people who are suffering back home. It's not about you, it's not about me, it's not about your party and my party. It's about the person who doesn't have something to eat today in Juba, the person that doesn't have a hospital to go to, and all the kids that will not have a future. So let's be clear, it's not about us, it's about what we need to do for our people. Thank you. And now I'll take my job back. Now I'm your host again. Okay, I'm gonna give 10 minutes to Reverend Dumba to come present. And Reverend Dumba is have an organization that he would like to enlighten people on, and I will give him the opportunity to take that away and tell you guys what he wants to tell you guys. Welcome, Reverend.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to be here today and talk about few things that some people have already highlighted about what is the roadmap that we are looking to build together, not as an individual, but together. To highlight a little bit to know who I am a South Sudanese. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I am a graduate from Uganda Christian University in Mukono. I graduated with a Bachelor's of Social Work, and then I am also a graduate from University of Pittsburgh with a master's in education, and I majored in policy development. I want to thank Brother Ladu Gubek with the organizing committee, and also I want to thank the government of the United States of America for allowing me to be in the place of peace where I can sleep with not hearing gunshots. This is something that for some of us who have come from a country that's been torn into pieces, we grew up the whole of our life running in trenches, hiding, no food and everything. But we are in a country of freedom. And this is where we are here, we're yearning to. So I want to give you a little bit of the highlight of the organization that God has put in our lives. Although he has put a vision in me, but I don't say it is me, it is us. The organization is Agape International Organization. When you look into the website, it is Agape International Organization. In full, actually, it is Agape Heart International Organization. But because of this, we want to make things short. We just take it Agape International Organization. I want to highlight few things: who we are, what we are doing, what is our mission and vision. If you look in the logo, I think the logo can tell you exactly what it is all about. It is the hands of God holding the whole globe in his hands, in which Africa is actually in the middle of God's hands. And there is a boat. And that boat that you see, represents that all of us, whether you are from Africa, you are from which country that in the world, we are all on the same boat. And then look at the river. People talk about the resources. We have the River Nile, which is running from Lake Victoria, and it goes to the Mediterranean Sea. I just want to give you all this because people talk about the resources. Resources. These are the rich resources that God has blessed us with. Okay. Agape is typically, for those who are theologians or those who know how to read, study about the theology or Greek, it is a Greek word. It means the love of God. It is unconditional love of God. Unconditional love of God that transcends from God to man. And then it's also an exchange of this love between man to man, of all mankind. We are talking about peace. Without love, there is no peace. How can you be in peace if you're fighting each other? There's no way out. We have to build a love among ourselves in all the communities and societies of South Sudan and all over the world. We need to instill what's called love. So that is the meaning of love. So we offer, our focus is, we are looking into the developing countries in which South Sudan is part of it. We are looking at the people who are displaced and refugees. We are looking into the vulnerable people who have been deprived the rights of shelter, rights of education, rights of development, rights of health care. So those are the three pillars. We who come from Sudan or from Africa, we usually represent our family, education at home. People always gather together around the firing to transcend the values, the culture, the education through the firing. So those, when you see these three cooking stones, these are the three cooking stones that represents the life of the family. So when you look at it, it is health, education, empowerment, and self-sufficiency. Above all of this, in the center of everything is God. If you have God-fearing country, why would you even take a gun and kill somebody? If you have a God-fearing country, why would you go and break somebody's home? If you have a God-fearing country, why would you go and grab somebody's property and invade somebody's home? This is why this presentation is very important to me to share with you that it's important for us to have the love of God when we have education, when we have health, when we have self-development. In all this that you see, we will look into what are there in the education. In education, our children. Now, some of us who know that our children who are in Juba, for those who are ministers or director generals or undersecretaries or what, name them, their children not studying in Juba. All of them have gone either to Uganda or Kenya, including my children. It's because we want to educate our children, but we forget that the education should be provided even for the least people who could not afford. So in education, we need to emphasize about human rights. We need to emphasize about women's rights. We need to emphasize about civic education. We need to emphasize about ESL's education, because some of you or some of us who have come from another countries here, we don't know the language, we don't know the culture, but we needed to be assimilated into the United States system of education so that at least when you go to the store, you'll be able to buy something. So we offer this as a tool. The other component is health. Health is a key in our lives. Maternal health. Women in Juba, some of them are admitted in the hospital. Not only women alone, but some people were admitted in the hospital because of lack of services to the country that we are yearning for peace. Let me tell you, this is the fact. They are admitted in the hospital. They don't have clean water that they could drink from. They don't have food, which is being supplied like any other hospital in the US or in other developed countries, that food is always provided to people who are ill. But this is a situation in Juba. A person who is in the hospital will leave the hospital and go and work outside. This is an admitted patient. Will leave the hospital and go and work from outside in a restaurant in order to get a food after cleaning or washing dishes, and then fed and come back to the hospital and sleep in the hospital for doctors to give them food. Have you ever seen something like that in the world? Except in our country, which is a failed country. We cannot deny that our country is a fail. Self-development or self-sufficiency. There are a lot of things that we need to develop ourselves with. For the interest of time, I am going to be very quick. We exist holistically to nurture our community, to give them a voice that you need to stand up. When things are pressing you, you need to stand up. As a woman, as a child, as a husband. As I mentioned, those are all the areas that we focus. We focus on education, health, emotional and behavioral change. Look into issues that are affecting our country today. Our children are roaming in Juba. Most of them are street kids. It's because we fail as parents to provide them the services that their rights, they fail. Now they become thieves. Then some of them are called nowadays in Juba Toronto boys. Have you ever heard the Toronto boys in another country? These are our children, our sons, our nieces, our nephews, and they have turned against to kill our own people because we have a failed government policy. No security. We talk about security development. Where is the security when people are killed? There is no security. To me, as an advocate, to me, as a person who yearns for the security of my people, I will say there is no security in my country, and people are at risk. Some people are killed even in their own home, and they are being displaced. Where is the peace? We need to build that sustainable peace. Okay, you see, those are the things. We look at these pictures. Those are the situation we go through. Why do we need somebody to come and help us when we can help each other? We need to begin helping each other. We have even people who are with the special needs. They are so desperate in need of your touch. They need even your hand to contribute to buy a wheelchair. People talk of other things, but there are some so crucial things that we don't provide to our people. We also emphasize on agriculture. I like some of the other presenters that talk about agriculture, that says farming God's way. Can we join together can you guys join me together so that we can farm in God's way to provide the food in our hospital, the day hospital that people run out to go and look for food, when the land is vast, blessed, beautiful, with all the seasons that we could produce all kinds of food. Our fruits that could give us vitamin C are falling on the ground, and we step on it, birds eat. There's no food processing industry. Can we think together as South Sudanese to have a food processing industry in Meridi, in Kajukeji, in Yei, in name them, in Wow, name them. Not Central Equatoria. I'm talking as a South Sudanese, nevertheless where I come from, but I represent my country. We need to work on agriculture. Okay. Again, our people have been going through a lot of trauma. We have to offer behavioral change. We have to offer also emotional support, because God has given us a rich culture that we would work on. So finally, I want to let you know that one of our projects is about disaster relief. We are offering disaster relief to people who are affected with the natural disaster, war, and name them. And when you see all this here, these are the team from Pittsburgh that go to wherever natural disaster occurred here in Pittsburgh, or in US. We have this team that we send them. So I'm going to conclude, my brothers and sisters. I'm so sorry that my time is very limited. I would love to share more, but look, these are the kind of the materials that we send to the refugee camp. When you look at these barrels, we always collect clothes, and then we send them to Uganda, to the refugees who are naked and they don't have anything, including food items like sugar, soap, and anything that we can help. If you would like, you can join my hand, reach out to me, and then I can be able to let you, we can work together. Thank you, and God bless you. I apologize for the time.
On the computer. Once again, thank you, Reverend Dumba. That was a great presentation. That's what we are looking for. It's not just all about the government, it's about us. We need to be the change that we want to see. We cannot just be waiting for the other person to do it. You start being the change that you want to see. And this brings me to my favorite part of the program. And the next person that's gonna be coming up is Ms. Kosar Albi, and she is gonna present a poem by the title, Let's Bring Peace.
Hello. I'm glad I came after everybody was already ate and we're all full, because in Sudan we have a say that says can zuljan bikatul talent too. So if you're full, all your talented will come up. So here I am. Okay. So my poetry or my poem that I going to present, I name it Jibutakum Salam, and actually changed the name. It's one of this piece is special. I wrote it when I was 16 years old. That was about 100 years ago. So, I mean, literally, I changed a lot of things on it because at that age, I was, I lived in North, and sometimes to people who've been in South, in North, Tokum Basma, Pinastanin kan Yalgalabu, Galikan Tamaskut, Ana Binadilete Junubi, right? So I was, you remember that, right? Yeah, some, yeah. So ana kan kelim gali hatta nasil shenin de umolisa haltai. Ana gihubumon ashanumon haltai. But they have me some change some words here and there. But I want to think about myself as a writer and as a poet. I'm still working on my book. But I felt that I failed to be a good poet because I failed to write in Arabic Juba. Kana nudi lekon letakom example ba Arabic Juba takom batako. The example tayo ba Arabic Juba. Alela mama ana bikore bele tay de mafgisala salam de besguna sakit basala minjeran tamatim minjeran dawa minjeran nas bikataban kulishi minjeran. Who remember that? So I thought of just to stick to what I do better, just do it in Arabic, because I also try in English, but I failed. So I'm going to do the piece that I added because I met great people like you, and we are wishing for those, like all the dreams that we are hoping for to come true. It's a little it's not really like with a strong Arabic, so it's a very little Arabic or simple Arabic. جيبتكم سلام بريدك يا تراب بلدي بريد أهلك بقلب نظيف بريد أولادك الزينين بريدهم ريدي للنيلين بس يستمحى حارقاني مقطعة قلبي فرقتهم حزين الليل حزين نهار عشان أطفال لا ليهم لا ليهم دار عشان عيال جابتهم ظروف اتشردوا اتفرقوا في كل شارع ليهم طوف لمتين يعودوا لحقهم لمتين ينبسطوا بأمهم لمتين يفتخروا بأرضهم يجروا يلعبوا في الخلا بدون خوف من موتوا من حرب من أي هم. والعشريف الفي الذرة والعشريف والذرة الفي الحقول وفي القرى تملى المدائن متخدرة والمدارس المبهدلة ل200 تعمر الفصول عشان يقروا عيال نديل. يا أخي الحروب ما بتنتهي، يا أخي قولوا خلاص كفاية. 30 سنة والموت كتير، 30 سنة وما في نهاية. يا أخواننا ما خلوا الدمار، خلوا الكراهية في الخلا، خلونا نبني بلدنا فوق، خلونا نرفعها في العلا. نادوا العيال، نادوا الشباب، كلامنا بس ما سنبلة. خلونا والعالم شهود، تعالوا جروا خط عديل ما بين زمن القبائل والحسد وزمن ضياع كل الشباب والخوف على الوطن السراب. خلونا نبقى مع الأمل، نفتح طرق المستحيل، لأنه نحن مع بعض بنلقى السلام وبنقدر كمان نفتح له 1000 باب. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Kausar. That was very impressive. I've been dying to speak in Arabic since yesterday, but now I'm happy that I heard somebody talk in Arabic, classic Arabic. I would prefer to speak in Juba Arabic. but that is great. That should not be the only involvement by we, the mothers, the sisters of South Sudan. We as the women of South Sudan need to step up. When we come to conferences like this, we shouldn't be sitting in the back and listening. This is very vital. It's a very important thing for us because as we've been hearing since yesterday, even being pointed to our faces, we are the ones that struggle to get the food for our children. We're the ones that are concerned that their kids don't have schoolings. And we're the ones that go into labor without proper medications and unqualified doctors attending to us. We should be front and center. We should be front and center in such conferences because we don't want to wait until it's late when all the policies and all the laws and everything is being imposed on us. Then we will come and rise and demonstrate. It will be late. It will be taking time from us. It would be a waste. We saw our daughter yesterday stood up for what was put in her life, and she is striving. We should be very proud, and we're very proud of her. But people coming up like that need support. We need to be doing more. We shouldn't be silent, and we shouldn't be sitting in the back. We should be participants, so we are able to put our cause forward. So this brings us to a very important moment in our conference. We are gonna give this opportunity to our guest speaker, Dr. Henry Lodukole. Dr. Henry is a research scientist with a PhD in genetics and animal breeding, a graduate of Kyoto University in Japan. He worked for 15 years in research and development for New Link Genetics and Bioprotection Systems at our Iowa State University Research Park in Ames, Iowa. Before that, he worked at the Gene Therapy Research Institute at the Methodist Medical Center in Des Moines, Iowa, and for Kyoto University in Japan. Dr. Lodukole, I got it this time, is an active political human rights activist. He is also a community leader organizer and a coordinator of the U.S. South Sudanese academic professions. Dr. Lodukole, why is your name being so difficult for me? It was misspelled? Okay, tell me the right. Lodukole. Okay, Dr. Henry was also awarded the 2014 Guest Memorial Award in recognition of his outstanding service in Iowa, uh, being an example of the goals of the United States and the Iowa United States Association. Married with 3 children, Dr. Henry and his family lives in Waco, Iowa. Sorry for butchering your name. I promise I would practice it. By the end of the conference, I will know how to pronounce it. Welcome, Dr. Henry.
How do I get my presentation to the screen, sir? Oh, you want it on stick? Huh? Yeah, I do. We shifted probably on those mechanics for time.
Ms. Aponas, you're a guest speaker, so we'll work with that.
I have a version on it that's old, so I must get you current. And can I control from here with the remote? Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Mhm. Okay. It will be the only presentation here, so you'll be able to see, okay? No, I thought it is out. Did it go into a folder? Oh, goodness. Let me put it out again. Not what. That's not it. That's. Oh, let's do this again. Hmm? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Trying to force it into. I'm trying to prop it there. Okay, that one worked. MN is old version, so don't go to the folder. Go to this one, which is outside. Yeah. Now there are 2 of them. The one that we need right now is the one that is greenish color. apologies for all the technicalities. I didn't know they didn't have this place wired. They normally do. Okay, let him plug in that cable. If you can plug this into the HDMI port, that should save us time. Is that from my end? Huh? Yeah, but it's not reading this.